We'll be getting started in just a moment, but I want to tell you before we get started, we're going to be accepting questions on cards tonight. We did this last night at Cedar Shoals and it worked pretty well. So if during this next hour you need a card and a pen to write down your question, just raise your hand. I'll call for them a couple of times and we'll have somebody come around and pick those up, give you a card, give you a pen, write down your question, then hold it up, and they'll bring them up to me, and we will go through each one. So we'll get started in just another minute or so. No, ma'am. If you submitted it online before 4 o'clock today, I have them. If after 4 o'clock, you might want to go ahead and write it on a card. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's just a little after 6. I'd like to introduce myself first. I am Dr. Cindy Purdue Moore. I'm the Executive Director of Public Relations and Communications for the district. And tonight we have a panel discussion. Some of you have submitted questions in advance. As I said just a few minutes ago, if you'd like to submit a question during this, just raise your hand when they come around. They'll give you a card and a pen. Write your question down, then raise it back up, and someone will come back through to pick those up, and we will get to each question. If you submitted your question online before 4 o'clock today, you needn't submit it again. I have those already. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have here Dr. Garrick Askew, Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Chief Terry Reed from our CCSD Police Department, of course, Superintendent Dr. Robbie Hooker, and Deputy Superintendent for Academics and Student Supports, Dr. Jennifer Scott. Now, our format tonight will be, I will read the questions we've received. I'll ask the panelists. The appropriate panelist or panelist will respond to that. If you have a question during the evening for the next hour, jot that down on a note card, raise your hand high, we'll come around to you, and we'll answer each of those questions in turn. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dr. Hooker. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Oh, that's extremely loud. Can we turn that down just a little bit? Thank you. Thank you and good evening, and thank you guys for coming out. We had a similar event at Cedar Shows on last night, and tonight just want to share with you the reason we're having this meeting is to discuss some of the concerns that you may have about the safety of our schools, issues that we've dealt with for the first 3 to 4 weeks of schools, how we are to handle those. But before I get started, I want to share with you, first of all, I'd like to thank our board member for being here, Ms. Linda Davis, and I do not see any other board members. When they come, I will make sure to introduce them as well. Thank you for your support and for being here. But I do want to share, as community leaders, we must understand that our schools are an extension of our communities. So that what we see in our schools sometimes are extensions of what is taking place in our community. Our job here tonight is to discuss how to listen to your concerns, but how do we find solutions to resolve some of the matters that are taking place in our schools. Second of all, this is not the last meeting. This meeting is like a listening and learn session. We will have other meetings, focus groups meetings within the next 2 weeks to come up, to have individuals who are interested in helping us find solutions to issues that we're dealing with in our schools. So we will be reaching out to you if you're interested in doing so, focus groups to address those issues. So we're ready to move on. I'll turn it over to Dr. Scott.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to bring your attention to one of the slides that will come up that lets you know actual processes for ensuring that any concerns or questions that you have are directed to the correct person at the district office. So upon entering, there was a information table that had this flyer available. If you did not pick one up, then we do ask that you do pick one up. It allows you to see all of the different people within our district office who are available to support around any questions or concerns that you have. We know that sometimes we are able to get some information from social media, but recognizing that that is not our official method for getting any issues resolved. And so we do highly encourage everyone to make sure that you are following those protocols and procedures to ensure that your questions or concerns are answered and addressed in a timely manner. And so again, it will be highlighted on one of the slides that comes up throughout the evening, but you can also pick up a handout that is available out front, and it is also available on our district website. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Reed.
Some things that we have in place that has really helped throughout the years. And one of the main things we have is you see something, say something. I mean, that's been so important to us. Believe it or not, all the information that we receive, we look into it, we follow all the way to the end. And there's been getting some great results as far as taking care of some security issues here, not only on Clarke's Central Campus, but the campus throughout the district. We have hired 2 additional sworn officers. Well, they're in training right now. That's going to help us out in the elementary school areas and to give more support there. And then we are upgrading our camera system for all the elementaries and the high school and middles that need them. And that will be some extra eyes and ears for us to stop intruders on campus and to revisit some incidents that may happen on campus. So we have some good things in place, and then our connection with the ACCPD by allowing us to use their 6 SROs in our school, along with the school district SRO. So we have a team of officers and administrators that really has a major impact on keeping our campuses safe. Lieutenant Johnson is currently leading the GREAT program in the gang resistance education training for our middle in elementary schools and middle schools. And that took off last year, and it's doing great. Like I stated, additional cameras, advanced sign-in system that we have in the schools where you have to show your ID, and we're picking up on people that shouldn't be on our campus, and we kindly escort them off. And you may have noticed at our athletic events, we are enforcing the clear bag, and we're warning, and that has really changed things. When we started last year, we was getting pocket knives, all sizes, and this and that. And as we move into this year, those numbers have greatly decreased. And that's the purpose of to deter anybody from bringing any unwanted items here on our campus. And we, as police and security, it's not us alone. It's admin and staff, teachers, everybody that plays a part in this. And that's what's helping us be successful with this phase of it.
Now, Chief Reed is in charge of security. Dr. Garrick Askew and his team are in charge of safety. So if you'd introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about maybe the strategic system so that people will understand what we're talking about with later questions.
Sure. So one of the systems that we have in place to help keep our schools secure is our Strategics crisis alert system. And basically all of our staff members have a badge, and it's electronic, and it's connected to strobes throughout the building. And so they're able to alert the school administration as well as the total building to various emergencies that might occur during the day, you know, whether that be a medical emergency or, you know, God forbid if we were to have an intruder in the building or a need for a total school lockdown. Based on the number of presses on the badge, staff are able to alert the office as well as the entire building. So that's just one of the methods we use to help keep our buildings safe.
Thank you. And we'll refer back to that and several questions throughout the night. I'll point you to our slideshow. There's a QR code on here that we'd like for you to use to sign in, just so we know who was here or how many people were here. If you are interested in serving in the focus committees or the focus groups that Dr. Hooker mentioned, please include your email with that, and we'll use that to reach out to you. We also have the how-to, and that's how to report a concern, which Dr. Scott told you a little bit about, and how to use our tip line, which Chief Reed talked about. And that tip line can be anonymous. You don't have to tell us who you are. You can offer kudos and applause, or you can tell us about a concern you have, and we promise you it will go to the person who can investigate, look into that, and take the necessary steps to resolve an issue if there is one. All right, I also think I saw another board member come in. Raise your hand if that is correct. Yes, I was wrong last night. Dr. Lakeisha Gant is in the back, and she is, of course, our board president. So thank you for being here this evening. All right, let's get started with the questions. Question number 1. Is the district considering that all high school students wear ID badges to help easily identify intruders who aren't students?
Sorry. That is something that we are considering. Again, it's loud, or maybe it's me. It's me? Okay, pull it back. That's better? Okay. I noticed in the past when we've used Live Touch as our photographers, they would be able to produce ID cards for each school. Not all of our schools use Live Touch. So as a district, we will have to be proactive and think, how can we get our cards within the first 10 days of school to issue to students? So that's something at the district office we will be working with our principals to work on how to get that beginning of next school year. I think that will help with our students in identifying who belongs on what campus.
Thank you. Now, currently, we have a process for people who are not part of the school that they're visiting. What is the visitor's process for checking in currently? Dr. Askew or Chief Reed?
Sure, that's pretty straightforward. All visitors to any of our campuses need to report to the main office and present their ID so they can be issued a visitor's badge.
Thank you. Will there ever be a consideration for all students in middle and high school to only carry clear backpacks?
Strong consideration, yes. That is something we discussed that last school year. It was during the third or fourth quarter of the year. And as a district, we discussed we have to give our parents opportunities to purchase those clear bags. That's something we can work with our business partners and others to implement that during next school year. And I do believe that will help with some of our safety concerns when students are in the classrooms or they're throughout our building. We're able to see what's in their book bags. So I think this will help deter some of the items that are brought to our schools that are illegal.
Thank you. Are scanners or metal detectors being considered for high schools at this point?
Yeah, we currently have the hand wands and 12, I believe, walk-through of metal detectors. Now, by saying that, you got done the process. It takes, with the layout of all our high schools and middle school, all the doors and entrance, it would take a lot of planning to get that in place. Speaking with the principals of high schools and middle schools, I mean, it'll be a tough job, but we're not saying we won't, but it's just a matter of getting a plan in place to do it. It'll take a huge team to do that. Like I said, we currently wands at all our sporting events, and this does a great job, but we have to really, really do some planning to take that on for the middle and high school at this time.
I would also like to reiterate when we talk about having metal detectors at our high schools, for you to realize that to be effective, you have to have people at those metal detectors at all times throughout the day. They have to be manned 24/7 during the school hours. And it's, when you think about the issues that we've seen in high schools when it comes to metal detectors or the shootings that have taken place, they don't come through your front doors. They are able to get their weapons in even though you may have metal detectors. There have been several issues of that. Again, as Chief Reed has stated, it's important for our students, our communities, to, if you see something, say something. That's the only way we're going to be safe. I go back to saying that our schools still are an extension of our communities, but in order for us to make it better, we have to work together to make that happen.
Thank you. Are all outside doors locked at all times?
Yes, all the doors on all of our campuses are locked and set to lock each morning. Now, of course, throughout each day, it takes a concerted effort by all adults on the campus, including our security staff, as well as school administration, teachers, as well as even our employees in plant services to help keep our doors locked. But they are all set to lock each day.
And as a follow-up to that, Dr. Askew, is there a schedule on which they're checked? Is there a regular process to make sure that's being done? What does that look like?
So in the schools that have SROs, they're heavily involved in monitoring the doors to ensure that they're locked and remain locked throughout the day. And of course in your high schools where you have more kids coming and going as well as visitors in and out of the building, that's a bigger effort. In addition to that, the school administration at each building has its own processes for helping to monitor the doors. So again, it's a team effort.
Mm-hmm. And can you remind us what SRO stands for?
School Resource Officer.
Mm-hmm. If we contact the school that our child attends, can we be given the name of the person responsible for safety? And who might that be at each school?
Each school has a school safety officer. We do a district-wide training throughout the year on a number of topics with our safety officers, and then they re-deliver in the school to staff. But if you were to call and ask to speak to the principal or one of the assistant principals, they could let you know who the school safety officer is.
And Dr. Scott, did you want to expand on that at all?
That's what I was going to share, that your primary person at all schools would be your school principal, and they can direct you towards any individuals that can support in any concerns that you might have around that. But your primary person responsible for safety in your building is the school principal.
Thank you. And I'll just remind you, If you need a card to write down your question and a pen, just raise your hand now, and Katie or Carol will come around and get those to you and pick them back up. So just raise your hand at any time, and they'll be on the lookout. All right, this is a topic that came up quite a few times, bullying. Who can address what's being done to address bullying in our schools? Dr. Scott?
When it comes to addressing bullying, then that's something that becomes a top priority for all of our building leaders. As soon as they're made aware of a situation where a student is reporting that they are feeling bullied, or a parent is reporting it, or something that's observed by a staff member in the building, then the principal will work with their administrative team to identify who might investigate that, to be able to gather more information and be able to move accordingly. When it comes to that, then there are measures that will be taken to make sure that supports are in place for the student who is identified as the victim of bullying, but also being able to provide support to that student that's identified as the bullier, so that we are able to support them in remediating that behavior and making sure that they understand that their actions are identified as bullying, so that we can correct that, and being able to create a space that is safe emotionally as well as mentally and physically for all students involved. With that being said, if your child is a victim of bullying, or if your child is the initiator of bullying, then you will be notified as a parent. There is a formal notification that is required in that case in any situation related to bullying.
And I hate to get too technical here, Dr. Scott, but can you give us just a quick definition of what bullying is? How do we know what that looks like?
So bullying is considered repeated offenses against a student initiated by one other student that is specifically targeted to create either fear, emotional, it could be mental, it could be physical threats that are made against a child, but it would be considered those repeated things that are done intentionally to create a sense of fear or to create emotional distress for another student.
And along those same lines, what services do we offer for our students who have been the victim of bullying?
So when we're thinking about ways to support those students, then we are working with our administrative staff to identify, is this a student that would need some additional supports provided through the counselors at the school? It may be reaching out to our district mental health counselors, our trauma specialists, to be able to support those students who are identified as victims of bullying. And then within our secondary schools, then each one of them has a mental health counselor that can also be a support system for students who are dealing with bullying.
Thank you. What measures will the school district take in order for those who are here not to get an education, not to get in the way of those who are here for the right reasons? What measures are the school system taking to make sure students who misbehave are being dealt with?
One of the approaches we are taking is meeting with parents. It's important that we meet with parents and get their buy-in to help with the behavior that their child may be disrupting the instructional environment. I'll give you an example as I used over at Cedar, and Dr. Huff and others, you can correct me. I believe last time looking at data, we have close to 38 students here at Central who have been here maybe 2 or 3 years with 2 or less than 5 credits. They're credit deficient, but they're coming to school every day and they're causing disruption. Close to 85% of those students may be our primary discipline problems. What actions are we taking as administrators and as district office? We are doing our best to meet with parents to make them aware of that. We've offered, there are times that we may have to have hearings and those students may be required to attend alternative school, but we cannot continue to allow those students to roam the hallways to disrupt others. They're coming to school every day, eating lunch, and walking the hallways. We're going to have crucial conversations. Our administrators have had crucial conversations with our parents concerning this. But we have to put this to an end. We can't wait until January. We need to start now in addressing those issues, or it's going to impede the learning that is taking place here at Clarke Central and at our other schools as well.
Is there anything our community can do to support those efforts in our schools?
Yes, I think it's very important for you that are sitting here and other community individuals to think about mentoring. Clarke County has a mentoring program that partners assign students or individuals in our community to work with our students. I think it's very beneficial for a student to have an adult to come and spend time with them. And it changed some of our students' lives because most of our students want time to spend time with an individual, but they also just want you to listen to their concerns. The other thing is partnerships. Many of our schools have partnerships with local churches that have had positive impacts. I'll give you several examples. Winterville Elementary has Ebenezer West that has partnered with them. We have several of our local churches, Millage Avenue. I think a couple of our Presbyterian churches may partner with Apps Road. Many of our churches are partnering with our school districts, with our schools, but I ask that when you partner with the schools, make an impact, be there, not only for the students, but for our teachers as well, providing lunches, not only providing lunches, but being there to support them, to help them, if you're there to help teachers make copies or assist a classroom mom or dad or whatever, to assist in helping in those efforts. It makes a difference when they see people in the community also at their schools to support.
And the other side of that, what is being done to hold parents accountable when their children don't do what they're supposed to do?
The accountability piece for our parents, we are doing our best to have those conversations with them, but parents must understand we have to provide a safe place for our students to be educated at. And it's not going to be a popular thing, but when we have students who are disrupting to the degree that they need to be expelled from our school system, we need to do it. We have to think about the other 12,559 students that are in our district. We cannot allow one individual to tear, or several individuals to disrupt schools to that manner. But our parents, we offer programs to help assist with that. We have Mr. Wendell Bird here in the audience who works with us concerning our HYPE program to work with some of our students, and I'll let Dr. Scott speak about that further.
So as Dr. Hooker shared, we do have our HYPE program that is facilitated and led by Wendell Bird, and this is to provide intervention for students who have found themselves in some disciplinary trouble, and it provides them with those life skills that allows them to set goals, but then also giving them the tactics and the tools necessary in order to meet those goals. It is a 9-week program that is that students must attend alongside their parents. So there must be a parent present with them, because it's important that the parents are very aware of the tools and the resources that are being shared with the students, so that they can also look at how that can impact the ways in which they are using that within the home, so that it is coupled with opportunities for parents to have honest conversations with their students and then be able to apply that. And so with that, then we have seen that the students who have completed the full 9-week program have left there with tools that have helped them to be successful in returning to their schools and truly working towards goals that they've set for themselves.
Thank you. Okay, we'll give Dr. Hooker and Dr. Scott a minute to take a sip of water. And Chief Reeve, there's a couple of logistical questions for you. First of all, is there law enforcement present at all the schools?
Yes, at all the high schools and middle schools. We have what we call patrol officers that covers the elementary school. With the recent 2 hires of the 2 sworn extra officers. We're going to have 3 patrol officers out there. They're going to have a cluster of 5 elementary schools to support. That'll be their daily duties, is to support those 5 elementary schools throughout the day, all day. And like I stated, the Career Academy, they have 1 sworn, and the traditional high school, they have 2 sworn, 1 from the school district PD and 1 from ACC PD, Police Department.
Are SROs and sworn officers the same thing, Chief Reed?
Yes, they are.
And so SROs are scheduled at each of the high schools?
Yes, high school and middle.
Thank you. How often are the bathrooms and halls swept to eliminate kids hanging out? My child does not drink water to avoid having to use the restroom.
The bathroom swept, I was checked throughout the day. I mean, other things pull them in different directions as they security and admin and staff move throughout the building and campus. They are checking the bathroom. We have a sign-in log now that once that is done, they'll go in and sign in. They check and everything was okay at the moment. Like I say, at the moment, but you know, things move pretty fast. Within a minute, you know, something happens. But at least we log in the time. We can go back and say, this was not there at 12:15 because we just checked it. And that's a way before we keep up with, say, graffiti on the bathroom wall that need to be taken down and that type of thing. This is really, really helping.
Thank you. What is the hierarchy and process of communication about safety incidents on campus, both at the school level and the district level? When, how, and to whom would an initial safety concern be communicated? What constitutes a follow-up communication, and who receives those, and when can they be expected?
When we're thinking about the hierarchy of communication, then I would redirect you to the resource that was provided and shared earlier around how you would get your questions or concerns addressed. And so that lets you know when it comes to specific issues, who you would contact first. And so there is a process and a protocol for being able to do that, but I would also direct you to the tip line that was shared earlier as well. So if there are specific safety issues or concerns, then that can always be shared through the anonymous tip line. When it comes to whether or not there is a follow-up communication, then it depends upon the situation. If it's a specific safety issue that is with a specific student that a parent has brought to the attention of a building administrator and they are looking into that to be able to address it, then you should expect that you would have communication back. If it's coming as anonymous, then of course we're not able to reach back out directly to the individual that submitted that. However, if there are specific things that are happening within a building related to for example, if they're having to go on a hard lockdown, then you can expect that there will be communication coming out to notify parents of why that hard lockdown was necessary. But the communication truly does just depend on what the situation is as far as whether or not there are follow-up conversations.
Thank you. And if I can follow up on that, Dr. Scott, sometimes the communication sent out by the district is not immediate because we have to look at what actually happened. We don't want to send out communication based on an initial report or that sort of thing. And how we report that or how we communicate that with parents takes on a variety of forms, depending, as Dr. Scott said, on what type of incident it is. Is there a source for up-to-date data on the frequency and types of incidents at each school and district-wide?
So within the district, then, if you would like to know I'm assuming these are just the overall behavior numbers throughout the district, then there is a dashboard that is available on our district website. If you're access that dashboard, then you're able to pull up information related to discipline, related to school performance. You're able to manipulate it, to look at specifics, look at it by month, look at it by year. But there is a dashboard where all of that information can be found, and that's on our district website.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to the questions that have been submitted. If you would like to submit a question right now, just raise your hand. They'll bring you an index card and pen and then pick it up from you and bring it to me. My son is a 5th grader who attended the 2-week basketball camp this summer at the school district. He learned the 12 principles of character development, which has really helped him out in many ways. My question is this: how can we continue to have more of that through sports? And how can we reach out to the coach who ran that summer camp?
And Mr. Ernest Elder, I believe he's in the house. And he ran that program for us for our elementary schools this year. He will be working with our 6th grade students. And yes, not only does he do that, but our coaches also work with our students on character building. This year, we partnered with the ACC government for youth development athletics to include our elementary students. We have a variety of sports. We have over 500 students who are involved in that. That includes our cheerleaders as well, where we have we are partnered with UGA, where we will have students helping to tutor our students during these after-school programs as well. So we've done a great job this year of partnering not only with Mr. Ernest Elder, but with our ACC government to address some of our concerns when it talks about youth development, to keep our kids active with sports or other activities instead of having idle time at home. So we're grateful for those partnerships.
And some of those partnerships, Dr. Hooker, if I'm not mistaken, include a tutoring component. Is that correct?
Yes, it does include a tutoring component this year. UGA, many of those students have to do volunteer hours, so they will be working with our students in the after school to help them. There's a literacy component that Dr. Scott and her team will be helping those students to train them so that they can help our students with the literacy program as well.
Thank you. Are there no dress codes anymore? This questioner says that the last time they visited a high school, there did not appear to be one. Dr. Scott or Dr. Hooker, who can address
I would
the
love to
dress code?
take that one. Former high school principal, yes, I love to take that one. Yes, there's sorry, let me lower my voice. I get excited talking about dress code. Yes, there is a policy to address the issues of dress code. And our administrative team worked to the best of their ability to do that. And I'll give you a perfect example. An example as a high school principal. Our students come in one door, dressed one way. They go to the bathroom and change. And we will bring them to the office and say, hey, we're going to have to call your parent to bring you something, or you're going to have to sit in ISS until your parent can bring you something. Guess what? Majority of them, correct me if I'm wrong, have something in their book bag, so they know. The issue that we have at times when you address students dressing inappropriately is that they become hostile. You can't tell me how to dress. My mama said I could dress like this. And sometimes we do have parents who come up and uphold their students in how they're dressing. We do our best to stick to the policy concerning the dress code. Can we get better? Yes, we can. But it goes back to the community. What are we doing as parents to help us address that concern too? So we can't just blame the schools. We also have to look in the mirror at our parents as well. How can you help us to combat the issue that we're having with dress code violations?
Thank you. I don't see anything addressing the gang problem in schools around Athens, Georgia. What is the district doing to address those problems and keep them out of our schools? Chief Reed?
Yes, there is a gang problem in our schools, and how we address them, it depends on several elements. I mean, first of all, you don't just approach the kids and embarrass them. You make notes, make observations, and then go back and readdress, get admin and everybody involved with the situation. And it's done on a daily basis, and a lot of times it don't go out to the the public because they handle in-house. And when it crossed that line between policy and law enforcement, and we deal with it. And a lot of the admins in all the schools do a heck of a job keeping the gang activity, pressing where it don't have the big blow-ups like we're having. And they're doing a great job. And yes, we're dealing with it on a daily basis. And when they get too far right, they turn over to us, and we do what we have to do, and not try to create such a big disturbance for the whole school. Yes, we're dealing with it daily. It's here. We recognize it, and we reach out for other sources from the state, the county, and pretty much all the districts are doing some same things throughout the district, state. We just try to keep it suppressed so no major incidents will happen on our campuses.
I would also like to share with you that we are fortunate to have Lieutenant Johnson and Officer Williams here who are trained in working with gang-related activities. But it goes back. I continue to say to community, we have parents who send their kids to school 13 and 14 years old, and they're afraid to deal with their kids because of the activities that they are taking part in our community. Several of our officers and our administrators have dealt with parents who raise their hand and say, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything with him or her. These are 13, 14-year-olds, 15-year-old students. So we're talking about it takes partnerships with us to do that. I am finding that our administrators have had probably this year alone more conversations with our 9th grade students concerning this issue. So what do? It goes back to offering mentors to our students, but also if we want to get better at this and we want to improve or decrease the gang-related activities with our students, we also must improve the reading of our students. I hear crickets. But it's true. Many of our students that have those gang activity problems are far behind in their reading skills. They are struggling. We must never give up on a child. I will say that. Never give up on a child. They can always turn the corner. But it's up to us as a community to bind together and say that I will not lose this child to the streets. I've said it time and time again. Our prisons today are built upon 3rd grade reading scores. Okay? So how do we change that? That's by you getting involved. That's because you want to say, I'll make a difference. I'll come spend time with the child and read with them. Perfect example. Howard B. Stroud has a partnership with Creature Comfort. I got it correct this time. Thank you. And the partnership that they've had where you have 59 individuals that come into the school once a week, they read with the students. It has made a difference in the reading scores at their schools. I will constantly say it. It's about time. It's about saying I will never give up on my student. It's about building relationships. We have to stop saying it's those kids. They live in our community. It's our kids. Until we partner together and start saying those kids, as long as my kid get an education, I'm okay. It's about the whole community. So we have to work together to make that happen.
Okay. The discussion and questions suggest something happened to engender the responses that we're hearing. What happened? Do non-students come on campus often? Why? In other words, what prompted you to have these community conversations?
What prompted me to have these community conversations? Can you repeat that question? Because I don't want to. Can you repeat it, please?
Yes.
Sorry. Alex, can you repeat that question?
The discussion and questions suggest something happened to engender the response we're hearing. What happened? Do non-students come on campus often? Why?
not that students come on campus often. It's about taking a proactive approach. It's about how do we get better. It's easy for us to sit and complain about what's happening in the schools, but it's up to us to make things better. Something doesn't have to happen. You want to get better. How do we get better? Yes, we've had incidents, but we haven't had an increase of incidents where people are just coming on campus and causing trouble. When we've had incidents, we've dealt with it. I'll give you examples. Chief Reed, you can fuss at me later. The first example is that it's not that the students we're dealing with adults who come on campus and fight with our students. Adults. We've had several incidents of that, coming on campus fighting with students. We also have adults who incite the fights, kids getting off of a bus and they're fighting and parents jumping in the fight. So what do we say about that? What do we say about the adults? It's easy to talk about the kids, but the adults are part of this as well. So we have to help each other. If we want to be a stellar system or a high-performing system, it's going to take more involvement from the community. I think about it, when I point one finger out at you, I have 4 fingers pointing back at myself. We have to take a look in the mirror. Do we want this community to be better? How do we do it? It takes all of us binding together, working together, and saying, we can get better. We're better than this. And we have to show our surrounding communities that we can do it. It's time out for just saying what's wrong. The next question should be, how can I help? What's my role in making this school system better?
Thank you. Are there plans for active shooter drills? Dr. Askew, Chief Reed.
We do have active shooter training, and Chief Reed can speak to that, that our SROs participated in during the summertime. And then during the school year, we have lockdown drills, which would address a variety of emergency situations, including, God forbid, if we were to have an active shooter in the building. Chief Reed, is there anything you want to add?
No, I'll just add, like Dr. Askew stated, we training yearly, every summer for all type of safety drills, active shooter drills, anything you can imagine. But God forbid, if anything, but we're ready. I can tell you that.
And then I'll also add too, all of our staff received active shooter training virtually through our Vector online training program. So they've all received training as well, but not in the building, but virtually.
Thank you. Let's go back to a follow-up question about gang members in our schools. Once a gang member is known, are they removed? And if not, why not?
If I may, now keep in mind, being a gang member is not against the law. It's the illegal activity that they as a group participate in. So being a gang member, we can't just drag a gang member out. He got to be part of some illegal, he or she, activity before we can criminalize that gang. So just keep that in mind. Just gang alone is not against the law.
Thank you. All right, moving on to a different topic. What is the plan to address the physical well-being in the face of climate change and increasing temperatures? Is consideration being given to moving the start date of school back to avoid having school in the summer with our aging AC systems when it's super hot?
That's a great question, but as you think about it, many school districts have discussed that. But if you look at our schedule, we're on a block schedule. We have to get 90 days in a semester before the Christmas break, 90 days afterwards. That's why we use the schedule that we currently do. If we want to switch that up and we start in September, that means you're going to be getting out mid-June or later. There are other systems, I know other states have gone to that, but we have some systems surrounding us, and in South Georgia who started as early as July 27th. But they have multiple breaks within their school year to address that. We can look at that as we start the next calendar, but I think it's best for us to think about that. You're talking about our aging air conditioner systems. We had a cabinet meeting this morning. We are working to address those issues, putting a plan in place on replacing those units. So we are working on that. We're trying to be proactive in what we do to ensure that we keep our facilities up to date, and working through our work orders to get through it in a timely manner. We have several people on call for us when we have air conditioner issues. Melton and I believe Stiles are working to address those concerns as well.
Thank you. Another technical question, and perhaps a suggestion, is there a way to change the call button hard lockdown sequence to reduce the frequency of false alarms, pressing that button incorrectly?
Centegix sets the protocol for the number of presses that alert the system in certain ways. That's something we can investigate, but that's at the server level from the vendor. So that would be something we just have to investigate.
All right. Are restorative justice circles being utilized at Clarke Central High School? Dr. Scott?
So restorative circles are one aspect of restorative practices that are encouraged to be used across all of our schools. So we've provided training, and there are members of each school's team who are trained in restorative practices, and it is but one thing that can be used to support remediating disciplinary issues that you're seeing, but it is not something that is solely used to address discipline, but it is available and can be used at all schools, and there should be staff members who are trained at all schools to be able to implement a restorative circle.
Thank you. Now, we have quite a stack of questions left, and we want to try to get to all of them, so we won't be collecting others. However, if you have a question that remains when we're done, you feel free to send it to feedback@clarke.k12.ga.us. And we check that every day, and we'll respond to it all the time. So not just tonight, but in the future as well. Okay, what are we doing to save our youth and children? Are there mentoring groups or other alternatives? Is there anything to help them deal with peer pressure, bullying, and other sorts of issues at the schools? What are we doing in our schools to help the students deal with those things?
So within our schools, then all schools, especially at our elementary school, hold a daily, what is called the social emotional learning minute, or the morning meeting. And within that, then they're learning various character building skills. There are also character programs that are provided for our middle and high schools that are used during their advisement periods as well, in order to give them the tools they need to be able to make sure that they are having positive interactions with their peers, but to build character development. Beyond that, for students who are identified, who themselves are asking for additional support, maybe support that's being requested by a parent, then we do have our mental health counselors that are available to support, but then also working with our trauma specialists who support all of our schools and are available upon request from a parent, or if a school is reaching out specifically to work with a group of students. Sometimes it's with a small group, then our trauma specialists will be available for that. We also have contracts with some outside agencies who provide mental supports. Some of that is telehealth, and so that's limited to students that it would be appropriate for them to engage in mental health therapy through a telehealth method. But those are just some of the things that are in place to support students who might have specific individualized needs, but then also our school-wide plans to ensure that all students are receiving just that character building instruction that would happen daily at our elementary schools and during advisement at our secondary schools.
Now, you mentioned the trauma specialists. Are they assigned to each school, or how does that work?
We have 2 trauma specialists that are available throughout the district, and they are split, that one supports our east side schools and the other supports our west side schools.
We also have psychologists. Are those psychologists well versed in trauma?
So our psychologists do have training in trauma. Just as a psychologist, then they would have that training. Right now, our psychologists do not do a lot of that work because much of their time is spent ensuring that any required evaluations for special education services are provided, either for initial identification of students who could use additional supports through our special education program, or completing those reviews that are required every 4 years for our students who are currently in our special education program.
Thank you. Are there, and this is again along those same lines, are there people at the high schools that students can go to specifically if they're dealing with mental health issues, or they need mentoring or that sort of thing? Who's the point person for that at the high school?
So at the high schools, each one of our high schools does have a mental health counselor. And so for students who would like to see someone at their school, then they would seek the support from their counseling department and seek to get connected with the mental health counselor at their high school.
Thank you. All right. Can you describe, now, Dr. Askew, you mentioned the Vector training program. One of our audience members would like you to describe that training with regards to the active shooter situations. What does that involve? And we understand you can't tell us everything about security and safety measures, but what does that look like?
So basically, it just gives staff members a protocol to follow in terms of response to an active shooter lockdown situation, how to address it, how to stage the room, what they should be doing, what students should be doing, responses following, those kinds of things.
Thank you. Here's an easy one. If student IDs are implemented, could students use them to get their lunches or check out books instead of having to type in a lunch number? I'm going to go with yes. It could be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good
Right.
answer.
That's, again, a suggestion we'll write down and look at. Why does middle school have a uniform policy, but high school does not? A policy. Dr. Scott? Why does middle
So
school
when
have
it comes to uniform policies, then that is a school-by-school decision. There's a full protocol and process that schools would have to follow in order to implement a uniform policy. So you'll see that some of our elementary schools have uniforms as well, but that is a school-by-school decision. As a district, we do not implement uniform policies.
Thank you. I'll take this one and give you all a chance to rest. I believe you're familiar with the Be Smart program that educates parents on the importance of securing firearms in their homes. And I believe you're aware that the district has Be Smart cards for all families as well as posters. How can we help get these materials disseminated to all CCSD families, whether through Friday folders, electronic newsletters, parent-teacher conferences, and the Be Smart people who do a great job want our schools to know that they are available to present at PTO meetings, and we encourage you to do that. I will say, just as a not really related to safety in my response, but as an aside, if you have a flyer, if you're with an organization or group that would like to disseminate information to our students, faculty, or staff, you can go to that I Want To, and there's a Get a Flyer Approved. That comes through the communications office, and there are criteria that you have to follow. One of the most important is that the flyer must be in English as well as Spanish, because about 30% of our students come from homes where Spanish is the primary language. And so we want to make sure all of our students get that information. So if you'll just look on the website, if you have any trouble, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you. All right, the community has been repeatedly identified as part of the problem and the solution. What new district-wide ideas do we have to increase community engagement? This community has long been fractured, even with mentoring and churches. So what new ideas do we have? And perhaps that's something that we want to put out to our focus groups in the next couple of weeks.
What we are hoping to do, this is, as I stated earlier, this is not the last time that we will be meeting. We would like to have focus groups that will meet with us to help us find solutions for some of the issues that we're dealing with. I've reached out to all board members. We would like to have community conversations within our districts to hear your concerns and to address those as well. Our job is to work with the community, to be transparent, and to make this a better school system. But it's not only the school's responsibility, it's all of our jobs to do that.
Okay, what is the recourse for students in classrooms when there are students who regularly and consistently disrupt learning time? We've talked about that a little bit, and pull the teacher's attention. Despite behavior specialists, these continue to be significant disruptions with minimal repercussions for students. What can the student do to advocate for themselves in this instance?
So our goal in every classroom is to ensure that teachers are able to teach and students are able to learn. And with that, then as far as what students themselves can do to advocate for themselves, I think that ensuring that as an individual student, that you are presenting yourself as someone that is there to learn and being respectful and following those rules. It is not incumbent upon the student to address their peer around any misbehavior. That is the teacher's responsibility. So I don't want any student to feel like they themselves need to address their peers around that, beyond ensuring that you yourself are presenting in a manner that you are prepared to engage in the learning that's happening within the classroom. But teachers are encouraged to seek that support. As it was mentioned in the question, then there are behavior specialists that are available to support building leaders as they are building out processes, but then also supports for specific students who are disruptive. Having systems in place within the school so that teachers know the process to seek that help if they have students that are disrupting instruction, and that students that may need an alternate location to be able to address and to be able to give them other ways in which they can ensure that they themselves are coming prepared for the teaching and ensuring that they're taking part in the learning. But we certainly want to, again, encourage that disciplining a peer is not anything that we would encourage any student to do, but ensuring that they themselves are presenting as prepared for the learning. Of course, you can always offer your peers some encouraging words around ensuring that they are showing that they are being respectful of the teaching that's happening and engaging in that, but not in no way becoming confrontational with your peer or feeling as if you need to address the misbehaviors of a peer that's happening. That should be left to the adults within the classroom.
Thank you. Okay, we're running a little bit over, but since we got started a couple of minutes late, we'll finish out these last few questions. I think they're pretty easily addressed. Seeing a low turnout of parents, are the schools doing anything to address problems that start at home? Any bridge programs or parent training or that sort of thing?
So with that, when it comes to parents who need additional supports and resources and how to ensure that they are helping their child be prepared for school, whether that be academically or being behaviorally, emotionally, then looking at resources such as our HYPE program. And so that's something that building administrators will be asked to recommend students who would be ideal for that, because once again, that does have a parent component to it, where the parents themselves will receive tools and resources to be able to support their child and ensure that the structures at home are conducive to setting the tone for what they expect to see from their child. And so when we're looking at things such as that, then that's one example of what's available to families. Of course, also reaching out to those school social workers as well as the school counselors for other resources that are available within our communities and ways to support families who are seeking support in how to ensure that they're supporting their child and what they need to be prepared to do when they come to school each day.
Okay, this next question, what are students bringing in their backpacks? And I'll preface this by saying we encourage parents to check the backpacks of their students before they leave home, particularly elementary school students, so they don't put things in them that aren't allowed at school. Anything to add to that, Dr. Hooker? All right, and this last one is a little more lighthearted, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Hooker to close things out. When will a dress code be enforced for staff? Please make sure they also iron their clothes. Currently, they look like students. Visitors should be able to easily distinguish staff from students. Are there plans for a staff dress code, or is there a staff dress code?
Great question. Wow. I'm with you. I'm old school. I'll get in trouble for this, but I'm old school. I do not like wearing jeans. I think there should be a distinction between the way a staff member dress and a student. You should be able to walk into a classroom and know who the teacher in that classroom. Each principal or administrator, it's up to them to address the concerns when it comes to dress issues. So I'll leave it at that. We can get better at doing that. All right, I'm closing it out, right? No more questions.
No more questions.
Good. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming out. This is the second of our sessions that we've listened to you, but I want you to be on the lookout for over the next 2 weeks for dates and times of our focus groups. Our slogan is we're better together. We have to take that to heart. We have to really say if we're better together, we will not point our fingers and say what's wrong. We will say, how do we get better? How do we work together to make this community better? When our communities are better, our schools are better. When we work together, we will make a difference for our students and make this the best high-performing school district in the state of Georgia. But it takes all of us to do that. I look forward to having these conversations with people who are interested to do this work, and I can tell you it's going to be hard work. There will be crucial conversations. So if you do not have thick skin and you can't handle those tough conversations, you might just want to sit on the sideline. We need people who are really willing to dig in and come up with positive solutions as to how we get better and monitor us to ensure that we're implementing the right programs to make the changes within our district. Again, thank you guys for coming out, and I appreciate you. Thank you.